Hello there. Hey, everyone. This is John. And of course, with me is Matt. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Ahsoka review. So if you haven't listened or watched this yet, it's probably best that you go watch something like, crocheting or something else because this is going to be a spoiler alert kind of episode. So again, just make sure that when you are listening to this, that you're ready to dive in. So stay tuned. Matt, I was thinking about this earlier. When it comes to Ahsoka, right? She's, I would say, as a Jedi. Like, I feel like she's definitely not as known as some of the others, like Luke Skywalker, right? Or like Anakin, like as Darth Vader, and Darth Sidious, and so what. It's like some of these other like Jedi, kind of characters and whatnot. I mean, granted, like the Sith and the Jedi's and whatnot, but Ahsoka was one that they don't really talk about as much, unfortunately, because if you've seen like the Clone Wars like animated series or Rebels and some of the other like animated shows, like they don't really talk about her like really like during the main series, and I feel like it's kind of disappointing in a sense because it would have been nice to see her kind of earlier in the movies, you know what I mean, or especially like during the Clone Wars, personally.
Yeah, I mean, initially, George Lucas didn't write Anakin having a Padawan because he was still, you know, very much a Padawan himself. You know what I mean? So they didn't initially write him having his own, Padawan until, obviously Clone Wars came out, and that's where we were introduced to Ahsoka.
No, I get that, but I mean, like, I understand Lucas, when he, created the original books and writing them out and everything. I understand, like, at some point we'll talk about like the actual lore and like what's canon, what's not canon, and so forth. I mean, that's gonna be a great debate at some point. But like, I feel like Ahsoka would have been one that uh, would have been really interesting to see in the very beginning. Especially like for example, like no offense, like get rid of Jar Jar Binks. Like, what is the main point of like having him in, instead of like Ahsoka or something like that? You know what I mean? Like,
I think he served a purpose, but I think it would have been cool if he, served a better purpose than how he was used. I think the way he was portrayed and the way he was used, I think he just could have been used better.
I mean,
That's how I look at it.
I mean, there's definitely conspiracy theories on Jar Jar Binks about being a Sith Lord and like how clumsy he was in the beginning, and then like he somehow magically turns into this like.
There certainly
like,
are.
I don't know.
There are videos of him, in particular, and it does make sense. Like when you look at like, was he really clumsy, or because you look at like how many times does stupid luck come into play before you start thinking like, is there something to it? Because there's only a small number of times when like stupid luck gets you by,
but and then a lot.
You look at Jar Jar Binks and it just always seems to go his way.
Right, and that's what I mean. It's like, a character like that. I mean, I know he was supposed to be like this kind of like spoof in a sense that like in the original, like we'll say the first three films, but like we know that 4, 5, and 6 were, originally, the main intent that Lucas was trying to do because he knew that, the actual technology that needed to be used weren't available at that, that moment. But like once he made 1, 2, and 3, it's like, you look at it and you're like, this doesn't make any sense on why you would like me personally looking at it as a kid. Like I saw Jar Jar Binks and I'm like, who the hell is this character and why is he in here? And like, how does he serve our purpose? I mean, I understand like later on he becomes an ambassador.
Well, and that's the funny part about it. Cause like he becomes basically like an outcast of where he's from and a nobody to arguably probably one of the most powerful people like within the Senate.
Yeah, and it's crazy how he becomes powerful in that sense. But I know we're diving a little
Yeah,
way too deep
yeah,
into
we're
this,
not
but
even talking about Ahsoka at this point,
no.
but and it's kind of cool that we are doing an episode on Ahsoka because I mean, literally, episode 8 just came out this past Tuesday, and and I know when this episode comes out, it's going to be a couple weeks has already gone by, but um, the show's good.
Yeah, I mean, for what it has been, I mean, like Mandalorian definitely, stepped up the game a lot when it came to like, actual Star Wars series and whatnot. I mean, you saw like the Book of Boba Fett, that was okay, in a sense.
It was okay,
But
yeah,
I mean, like you look at this and it's nice to see like how they're trying to bring in, other characters besides Ahsoka. Like, I mean, we're gonna dive in a little bit more, but like General Thrawn was a big topic for a lot of Star Wars fans and geeks and of that that lore because they're like, oh my god, I want to see this guy and how well is he going to get portrayed, and it's interesting that they finally did it in real action, real life,
yeah.
right? And so they made it so that it hopefully now sticks with the movies, or maybe not movies now, but really series moving forward, like how they're gonna tie in everything. I mean, like they did Obi-Wan series. I mean, I would love to see Yoda, man. I mean, I know we're going off track again, but like Yoda, I would love to see how they could like bring him into the whole ball game and see how they tie him into the actual story of how he became a Jedi Master and he became like the Jedi lead council member.
Yeah. I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, the Force Unleashed, Star Killers, like that whole story.
Oh yeah, the games itself. Yeah,
Like, I would love to see a series based on that, like having Vader's, Padawan, and then eventually becoming a clone. I know that's kind of a spoiler alert. Sorry, but the game's been out for forever. So if you
you haven't
haven't,
played it.
if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
haven't played it, then I'm not sorry, um, but that would just be, a cool, you know, series to do because that is such a cool character. And Sam Witwer is still very much in Star Wars. Like he
Yeah.
did voices in Ahsoka. So I mean
Yeah.
he does the voice for Darth Maul in a lot of like the Rebels and Clone Wars. Like so he's very much still in the realm of Star Wars. So it's uh it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but
We'll see. I mean, it all depends
yeah.
on how Disney wants to play it, but yeah,
So Rosario Dawson.
amazing actress because she's done, for example, like Daredevil. She's done like some of the Netflix like series of like what was it, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist. Like she was in a lot of those. I mean, she's a very well known actress
Yeah.
through a lot of stuff. I mean, she's done a lot of things, but I think she does a really good job with Ahsoka personally.
Yeah, I mean she initially was in, the Mandalorian, Boba Fett, you know, realm of shows. That's kind of where she was initially the Ahsoka.
Well, I mean, she was introduced in The Mandalorian originally. It was
Yeah.
like a one episode thing, but like she is introduced one time, and then they finally were like, "Oh, we're making a series on just her alone," which is great. And I again, I didn't really see. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see all of the Book of Boba Fett. I think it was. I think at first it got a little, in my opinion, a little boring. But I mean, it was. I understand it's the original, like, Boba Fett, like he's the man, like he's the original, like Mandalorian, like that people would know, like he's the bounty hunter, like he's this and that, but like,
The show did a lot of cool things for the story of Boba Fett, but at the same time, it didn't do a lot of cool things for Boba Fett. So, but we can go there for another time on another episode, just talking about Boba Fett. But so the show Ahsoka, follows her quest to find, Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger, who, if you haven't seen Rebels, you might want to go see that first. You can go to Disney Plus, you can watch that, animated series first.
I mean, I feel like if you're gonna watch the animated shows, then I would probably watch Clone Wars first, and then dive into the Rebels.
I mean, you should watch Clone Wars first, but to make sense of the show itself, you don't have to watch Clone Wars, but
I mean,
it does make sense because some of the imagery from the show is in Ahsoka. So you really do want to watch both of them. It's going to take you some time because
oh
the
yeah.
animated shows have a lot of seasons, and
Well, the Clone Wars, I mean, they finally just ended, if I'm not mistaken, a little while ago. I mean,
they're both done.
are they both done finally?
Yeah, they're both done. The good thing about it though is I think the episodes are only about like 20 minutes,
So,
15 minutes. Like they're
I
really
mean,
short. So
yeah, I mean, but you couldn't binge watch it in a weekend. I mean, I would say you could probably do it in like a month or so if you were just constantly watching
no,
it.
but you probably could watch a season in like a good 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If you
Right,
were
depending on how much time you had. But yeah.
if you were really just watching it, but um, characters like Ezra Bridger and Thrawn and Sabine Wren, um, Hera, like those characters. When you watch Ahsoka and you haven't seen Clone Wars or Rebels, you're not going to know who they are. You don't know the relationship that they have. You probably may not even know the overarching story of where they are when that show actually starts, because there's so much that went on during Rebels that the show just kind of starts there.
Yeah, I mean, watching the first episode, I mean, granted I'm slacking when it comes to watching like Clone Wars and Rebels, but like when I first watched it for the first time, I was at first I was a little confused because I didn't understand what exactly was happening. But
Yeah.
like I think after a little bit, I mean, even if you didn't watch it, I think you kind of get an understanding of where
You do
they're
get
at.
yeah, you do get an understanding of where they are, but it does help, with the background of what happened in Rebels. And then you go and watch Ahsoka, you kind of have that understanding of, you know, why Sabine is how she is at the start of the show, why Ahsoka is the way she is, a little bit. I mean, we'll get into that one, but why the characters are where they are when the show starts. It doesn't exactly explain it, but when you watch Rebels, you kind of get that a little bit more. And this show is sort of like Rebel season 5.
Yeah, I mean, again, not having like a
Not
true
officially, but
yeah.
it's an extension of Rebels essentially.
I mean, some of the actors and actresses being played, I mean, they do a really good job of portraying the story, really of how Ahsoka's trying to find General or really Grand Admiral Thrawn and like trying to, save Ezra, right, in the very end. But like, um, some of the like, for example, like, was it Wang?
Huang, yeah.
Wang. So like, if you ever seen the Who, like Doctor Who, like David Tennant, he was one of the,
Yeah.
he's one of the doctors that he originally played. But like, you never would have known that. Like when I heard his voice, I'm like, I had no idea that that was him. But like, you know what I mean? Like some famous people that are portraying these characters, they really do a good job of really telling a story. I mean, unfortunately, one of the who I know we talked about this earlier, but who was the guy, unfortunately, who recently passed away?
Ray Stevenson.
Yeah, he was. What was
Balin
Balance?
Skull.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he was. You'll see him. He's kind of like an older guy. Basically, has like a kind of fuller beard and whatnot. Unfortunately, he passed away. But like, he did a really good job. I think
I
in
love
his
his
character.
character. Yeah, I love his character.
And I didn't really know like who he was particularly, but like I think he did a really good job, even
Yeah.
not knowing fully the backstory on his role in the whole thing. But like, I'm not gonna lie, his apprentice, whew, like she is something else. Like I don't know how to describe it, but she is like, I mean, actress wise, like yeah, she does a good job. And I mean, she's a good crazy woman. That's basically how to describe her. But like, she's out of her mind, man. Like I
Yeah.
don't know half the time what she's doing.
So yeah, I mean the whole idea of the show and why I say, it is kind of that Rebel season 5 is realistically like Rebels how it ended. Thrawn and Ezra are both gone and they don't know where they are. that's kind of, I don't want to spoil it if you guys haven't seen it, but Ezra was trying to defeat Thrawn
Right.
and they vanished. Nobody knows where they are.
Right, and that's where they kind of like pick off on this
And
particular
that's
season.
exactly where they start in Ahsoka is they're trying to locate, both Ezra and Thrawn so that they can stop whatever Thrawn is doing. At the same time, they're trying to save their friend Ezra, who they think is dead, but they don't know.
Well, right. I mean, and I think, watching this, I mean, there's definitely a lot of like action packed, definitely emotional scenes and like some funny moments. And so they have like a good like balance of like
Yeah.
the show itself. So that's why I'm saying like if you really like Star Wars and if you really like, watching these kinds of like TV shows and stuff, like this is a good real life like action, packed really like TV show to be watching because when you watch like animated series, of course, like it's just more story that Disney unfortunately like created on the spot because it was Lucas, of course, like oversees everything, but it wasn't part of his original plan. When he was doing
No, I
all
mean,
this.
Ahsoka wasn't even in his original plan, but, you know, initially when Dave Filoni, he and George like talk all the time. And there was, I don't know if it was a documentary or what I was watching, but there was something I was watching where he was, him and George were kind of in that same room and they were talking about Ahsoka being Anakin's Padawan and how, he never originally wrote it, but it made sense that he would kind of create a Padawan to train, in that moment. And that's where, Ahsoka kind of got created in that. But um, it's kind of just neat where this whole kind of creation came from, where, Dave Filoni is really just taking the helm of Star Wars and, he's done, he's done Clone Wars, he's done Rebels, he's done Mandalorian, he did Boba Fett, now
Did
he's
he?
done Ahsoka. So
So who did Bad Batch?
I want to say he did too.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know, like, if
Dave
he was
Filoni is the guy for Star Wars.
so he's basically like Kevin Feige in a sense for Star Wars related stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if Kevin Feige was also a director, writer,
Oh yeah, no, I mean I understand he's just a producer, but I mean like he's owning the show. Like
yeah,
he's the
yeah,
one creating
yeah,
all this
yeah,
content.
he's creating the content. He's basically putting everything like the pieces together. Um, yeah,
Okay, so again, Dave the Filoni is the man. Like
yeah.
he does everything.
So the episodes, there's 8 in Ahsoka. I guess I'll kind of just go over the title and the descriptions. They're really short. Part 1, Master and Apprentice. A valuable prisoner escapes New Republic custody and searches for answers, reunites two old friends.
So basically, it's Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, who again, so in the if I'm not mistaken, in Rebels, like she was never supposed to be a Jedi, right? In that sense, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
but like in this, like because she was part of Rebels, like I know Ahsoka, kind of basically what it sounds like is like retraining her to be a Jedi, even though she's Mandalorian.
Yeah, from my understanding, and I actually just heard a quote from I saw this on online. Um, it was from George Lucas, and he was saying within the Star Wars universe, anybody is capable of using the Force, but there are certain people who are particularly skilled that have that natural ability, like say you're Anakin or you're Ahsoka or
Right.
Obi-Wan, like that have that natural ability to call upon it.
Right. And she's unfortunately one of those ones that does not have that particular set of skills. and that she's just trying to learn, and she's having a harder time
Right.
than Ahsoka and everyone else before
Right.
her. But yeah,
Part two is called Toil and Trouble. So Ahsoka and General Hera travel to New Republic shipyards and make an unexpected discovery. So
because
that's when they find Balin Skull and Merrick.
yeah, Merritt, yeah, he's pretty badass. Like, I mean, he's something else. I mean, at first you don't even hear him speak, and then he finally speaks at some point. But like, it basically, from my understanding of this episode, is like, basically the Empire is trying to regain control, and they're just using some of the old um, warships that they're actually just,
Yeah.
they're tearing down and using it for the New Republic.
So a lot of the people from the New Republic were former Empire people.
Well, former is the key word here, but
Yeah,
really
yeah.
it's not former. It's more like, oh, we're still Empire.
Yeah,
We're just not telling you.
they're still Empire, and they're just not. Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like, if you think about it, so like this is like right after episode 6, technically, if roughly, or maybe a little bit after, but like that's kind of like when, even though they're defunking or defunct or whatever the heck it's called, but they basically they're getting rid of the Empire, and now
Yeah,
they're
they're
like,
taking apart all the ships, and yeah,
well, no, but like what I'm saying is like they're trying to basically get rid of the Empire, but like really they're transforming it into something else. Unfortunately, it's like, and I hate saying it like this, but it's like when you look at Al Qaeda, guess what? You look at the different names that they've used. It's the same thing. They're just
Yeah.
using different names. In this case, they're going to use something else in order to basically do the same thing all over again.
right.
But
All right, so part 3, Time to Fly. Hera tangles with New Republic politics, while Ahsoka and Sabine Wren voyage to a distant planet.
yeah, because I know Hera was told by was it the senators? I think of or whatever. I think it was the higher officials that were saying like, "Hey,
For the New Republic, yeah.
yeah," they were saying like, "No, you're not supposed to. You're not basically going to be aiding Ahsoka and Sabine Wren on a mission that isn't approved by them." And they, she got butthurt about it, and she's like, "Well, I'm a general. I'm gonna do what I want." And guess what? She brought some backup with them to basically help both Ahsoka and Sabine at that time. And granted, I mean, Sabine was captured and was, brought with I don't what is her name? The the she's like the witch.
I think her name was Morgan.
Morgan. Yeah, I think it's Morgan.
I think it was Morgan.
So she, like, it's like with Balin and Merrick and all of them, like they basically capture her, and then
Shin, I think her name was
Shin.
Shin.
The apprentice.
The blonde, yeah, the blonde.
Yeah. So she, like, all of them basically capture Sabine, and then Ahsoka's trying to basically figure out where they went, because they basically find this key that allows basically the coordinates of where Thrawn was, and that's where they were traveling in that, like, what was it, like, hyperspace ring, I think is what they called it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they just like go off, and like everyone's like, well, where did they go? Because they don't know, they don't have the coordinates at that time, so they like, okay, where do we go from here? So they're kind of like, what do we do? And I know Hera was like trying to like help them in that moment, and I know Hu Yang was like trying to figure out where both of them were, and he was like, hello, am I the only one here? Like, what's going on? And like he only sees Ahsoka come back, and he's like, well, where did Sabine go? He's like, oh, she was captured. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we could go find her. Like, basically, that's kind of like the gist of it. But yeah.
All right, so part 4 is Fallen Jedi. Hera risks her career to help her friends, while Ahsoka and Sabine confront enemies.
Oh wait, my bad. Did it?
I think you did both of them together.
Oh, did it? Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because okay, that's right. Because she gets captured, but I'm pretty sure they do.
Initially, they get that ball that has
that's right,
the
yes.
map, and then they confront them and that's where Sabine gets that little ball and Balin is initially like there is a an initial fight there,
Right.
where Ahsoka gets kicked off that cliff,
That's right. Yes.
and Balin is talking to her about like you can make a choice whether you die here or you can give me back the map and I can help you save Ezra.
Right.
And then she makes that choice to give him the map.
Right.
And then that's where they find the coordinates. And
And then, oh, that's right. Okay. So you're right. I did kind of merge the two together. Yeah.
yeah. So part 5 is Shadow Warrior. I particularly liked this episode.
So my understanding is this is where Ahsoka like, well, basically sees like a astral version of Anakin.
Yes.
Yes.
So the description is Ahsoka confronts her past while Hera and her allies undertake a rescue mission. So this is where it kind of gets weird because Ahsoka goes into a place that's called the world between worlds. And this is where you would really have to watch Rebels because that's the only other place I know of that the world between worlds exists. Maybe Clone Wars, but I don't remember it being in Clone Wars.
It could have been. I don't know off the top of my head either,
But she does see like kind of like a force projectoral, of
like
of
yeah.
Anakin, and really this whole episode, is kind of focusing on Anakin still continuing to teach Ahsoka a lesson. And this episode was really, really cool because if you actually watch Clone Wars, there's a particular part of this where she's running after him because they are lightsaber dueling back and forth, which is one of the coolest like duels that they've had in the show thus far. But when she's running towards him, all of a sudden like you kind of get into this like pink fog, and Ahsoka is young. Like she's young like she was in the animated show, except
Oh yeah.
she's not animated, she's live. Like
Right. Of course they have to portray her as young, but yeah.
and Anakin's not a projection. He looks like he's there. And he looks 100% like he did in Clone Wars. 100%.
Well, I mean, if you
same outfit, same hair, looked as young as he did, like spot on.
I mean, the actual person that portrayed, Anakin originally, well, not originally, I should say, in the like the first 1, 2, and 3, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, it's the same guy.
No, I know it's the same guy. I mean, because technically, like in the TV show, I mean, granted, I don't think it's the same voice actor. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think. Am I wrong? Did he actually voice Anakin in that?
I want to say that he did.
I mean, because like, if you think about it, I mean, they had to take basically ideals from like the actual movies to make him like look like in the animated series. But I would assume, like, yes, of course, he's gonna look the same, in Clone Wars as well as in the show now, because that's
they just did a really, really great job. And if you take those like the scenes from that, that particular part of that episode where it's in the Clone Wars, they're running into battle. It's almost scene for scene. Like you can actually look this up. Like it is scene for scene with the animated show. It looks 100% the same.
wow. So they're actually taking a playbook from The Last of Us.
I mean, it's scene for scene that almost the same.
Well, I'm just saying, like that's probably the best analogy I can come up with. I mean, because they're finally like realizing, like, hey, why don't we make it look exactly the same?
That to me was really cool. Like when you can actually see that and go, wow, like that is really super cool. Like to see the same kind of like similar aesthetics in the show, like crossover, like that was really cool. And then when they come out of it, you kind of see the glimpse of like Anakin, and then it glitches to him being Vader, and then back to Anakin. You know, when they're fighting, he has a green lightsaber, but when he switches, it goes red. And then you kind of see him like, with the scar down the side of his
Yeah.
face, and the eyes turn kind of that,
Yeah, it was like
yellowish red.
so. I'm trying to remember. Did he his original was it his original lightsaber blue or was it always green?
I want to say blue,
I want to say it was blue. So I'm surprised that
but I think he did have a green one towards the end though.
it's kind of weird though, because the only one I could think of that, like for example, like thinking of like in the
I
movies,
mean, I
like
know the one that he lost was blue because that was the one that Luke has or had
right had, but I
before he
think
lost his hand.
well yes before he lost his hand, but I mean like because like Qui-Gon Jinn, I'm going way back because he had a green lightsaber.
Hmm.
I know Yoda had a green lightsaber. I don't think there was too many others that had green particularly.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like, of course, there's other colors, but like, you know what I mean? Like, so it was kind of weird to see like him having a green lightsaber, and
It,
because I
it, it
usually,
it probably was blue. I don't know.
yep,
I mean, it was a little while ago, but
well, I get it, but yeah,
I mean, that episode to me was like one of the better ones. Um, I mean, obviously seeing Anakin, like the real Anakin, back in the show, back in Star Wars, is really cool, and it's one of those things like you kind of saw him in the prequel movies, and they get a lot of flack.
I mean, because I remember watching them as a kid. And I mean, it literally when I first watched them, I thought they were cool. Like I'm not gonna lie, I liked playing.
I really love the prequel movies, and
I mean, there's definitely some things that I can agree that yeah, like Jar Jar Binks. I mean, come on, like,
everybody gives them a lot of flack, but I really I really love the prequel movies, and I absolutely love now that like Anakin really has this cool following
well,
where he's a legitimate like character.
I mean, okay, for example, like, when they remastered some of the older, like the 4, 5, and 6, I mean, what was it? I think it was it 4? No, I don't remember which one it was, but like so like the original version was the original actor who played Darth Vader was like, you remember in that one scene of, I think it was Kashyyyk? No, not Kashyyyk, the Wookiee world. No, not Wookiee. Ewoks. Sorry, Ewoks. I'm trying to remember I cannot remember what world it was. It was like that one scene where they had like Obi-Wan, let's say the person who played Darth Vader and they had
Yeah.
it was like the Astro version. And then they remastered it and then they had Hayden Christensen, you know, basically portray him as Darth Vader. And it's like, okay, like why did we have to do that? Like because there was certain things like that that
I mean, I think it made sense because I mean the older Darth Vader character never was a Jedi, so having him wearing Jedi robes was kind of silly.
well, I understand. I mean, but I'm just saying like that's just a thing I wanted to bring up because like that's kind of where, they did that, now.
All
But
right, so part 6 is Far, Far Away. The search for Grand Admiral Thrawn reaches beyond the limits of the galaxy. So this one, I forget what this episode is exactly about, but I mean, this one, I mean,
of course.
once they find, they have the map. Obviously, Balin broke the map in half because he broke it with his lightsaber.
Right.
So they're now looking for a way to get back to where, wherever Sabine is. And I forget the name of like the weird flying whales. That's my best
No,
explanation
I know
for
what
them.
you're talking about, but yeah, no, I don't.
I forget
know.
the name of them, but I believe that's kind of where the idea that they have is they kind of know where they are going.
Okay.
So that's kind of the the overall idea, but it's really like is the New Republic going to allow them to go? Is kind of
Well,
the idea.
as previously mentioned, I mean, like when Hera was like, "Hey, I want to go help," and they're like, "Not a chance because you're a general and we need you here." No, like
Yeah.
it pretty much self-explanatory. I highly doubt that the council are going to be like, "Yep, go ahead, go for it." Like, no, they're not going to approve anything. They're just strict. I mean, I wouldn't want to work for them personally if I was a general. I mean, who would want to work for those guys? I mean, they're clearly not wanting to help. They're just like, we got better intentions.
So part 7, Dreams and Madness. Hera must answer to the New Republic while far, far away a reunion takes place.
Bum, bum, bum.
And this one, yes, obviously, Hera has to answer for, what
Her absence.
no, actually she didn't go because that's where Harang and
Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
um Ahsoka are traveling through lightspeed in the mouth of a whale. Because those things actually can travel through space.
Who knew?
Who knew? So they're traveling to, wherever that path went,
Yeah.
where Thrawn went to, and where Sabine is now. She actually does meet Ezra, and that's like in this episode. That's where we first see Ezra.
I guess the question is, since I know you've seen Rebels and whatnot, like, is he accurately portrayed correctly?
I think he's pretty accurately portrayed. I mean, obviously in the show he has, kind of a goatee beard thing going on, but I think when you look at him as a character and you look at how he was in the animated show, I think it does cross over pretty well.
Okay. Well, no, that's good. I mean, like I said, I'm glad that they're trying to keep as accurate as possible without having to like bend and create a new storyline and create like different things for these characters that they already have material for. But you know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
we have too many writers that are like, well, we're just gonna switch it all up. It's fine, no problem. They're not gonna know. Like, of course, people are gonna know. The fans are gonna know. Like, you don't think that people wouldn't see that? If like you made a character design change, like they wouldn't notice that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so obviously we see Ezra. I think it's right towards the end of the episode. And I mean, it kind of floored me because I wasn't expecting to see like kind of Ezra right at the end. I was kind of, almost expecting like episode 8 to kind of see him if we were going to see him at all. Um, so it was kind of like, whoa, that's cool. Like, he does kind of look the part. Um, and he's with this kind of alien race called the Naughty,
The naughty.
and the best way I can kind of maybe describe them would be they're almost kind of like small turtles, and they carry rocks on their back. So when they get scared,
They had the rock.
right, they basically just collapse down, and the rock covers them.
Yeah, that's that's
But
very interesting.
they look kind of like a race that would be like builders. So
Yeah,
they're very much like a builder type of race where they're good at just kind of tinkering and building,
fair enough. Okay.
not really fighting or confrontation.
No, I mean, hold on. You'd be like, I'm scared. I'm gonna hide under my rock right now. Hey, wait, do you live under a rock? Why, yes, I do actually. That's
I
that's
got one
who we
on
are.
I
I'm
got
right on
one
my
on my
back.
back. And part 8, which just came out, the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. That's
Mm,
like straight out of C.S. Lewis right there.
there you go.
Yeah. The heroes race to prevent Grand Admiral Thrawn's escape. And this one is really the pinnacle end of the show, where I mean, obviously, we know Dave Filoni already is planning.
Right, it's season 2.
Um, I mean, there isn't a season 2
Oh,
already like approved yet.
Ah, okay. Well, I mean, I feel like it's gonna happen. I feel like
So it's either they do a season 2, but I know Dave Filoni already has like a trilogy Thrawn movie set in place.
so. My guess is that they would probably do the first movie, do a second season of Ahsoka, and then maybe
Possibly. I mean,
it just depends on
mm,
how which way they go.
it depends on which way they go, because there are a lot of questions that have a lot to be answered. So it's really like, what direction do they really go in? Are they, and not that they're kind of rebooting, but are the Thrawn movies going to cancel out 7, 8, and 9 that are already there, or is it going to work into those somehow?
I feel like like knowing Disney, they're gonna try to keep it as linear. I feel like as you know what I mean, because like you can't use the DC reboot for like as an example. I mean, granted, actually, I was gonna tell you, I forgot. I did watch Flashpoint, by the way. I know exactly what you mean, and I can tell you why is all I gotta say. But anyways, if you haven't seen it, go see it. But I know it's a little off topic, but yes, you shouldn't use a reboot to literally create a whole new universe in that sense. Because if you feel like with Disney, right, so with Marvel, they never once rebooted. Technically, I mean, I would say maybe the only thing they did was like Hulk. That was the only time they really did
Yeah,
anything,
well,
but it was minor because it wasn't as pivotal in that moment. But like realistically,
I wouldn't necessarily maybe call it a reboot. Maybe just ignoring the fact that those exist,
well, I mean,
and
like personally,
just kind of moving past them. But and that's really where the world between worlds exists. Like, are they going to use that to say, like, they changed history,
I see what you're saying.
so now those
It's like it's an alternate timeline.
that future no longer exists because the past was changed.
I mean, well, it kind of makes no sense because then if you think about it, they're also trying to do another movie with Ray regarding that piece. So it would kind of defeat its purpose. So I feel like it's somehow going to be connected.
I do think it'll be connected, and I think part of what Dave Filoni is probably going to do is how Thrawn led into maybe the creation of the First Order,
Well, I mean, the
and
problem
how
is
I think what would be even cooler is how the Night Sisters, and if they go this route, making the Night Sisters more responsible in the creation of Palpatine, and not making Palpatine the creation of Palpatine. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, because Palpatine has been the dude needed to die a long time ago.
well, the thing with Palpatine is he, even in the original books, and these are no longer canon.
Well, again, we're
So,
gonna we're gonna talk about that at some point, but yeah.
but in the original books, and this is way, but we're going way off topic here, anyways. But Palpatine had, I guess you can call them husks, but he had clones of himself made
Well, yes,
and
right.
scattered all throughout the galaxy. So if he died,
Another one could take his place, essentially.
he could he manipulated the Force so much that when he died, he could manipulate the Force from one body to the next one.
I mean, I'm gonna say this, right? So when you look at him in the prequels, and then you look at him in, let's say, 4, 5, and 6, and then you look at him again in, well, really, I would say, really 9, because you don't really get to see him in 7 or 8. But when you look at him in 9, the dude, he's literally hanging there from these like giant coils, and like he's being brought down, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna go into." Because I mean, because granted, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but like Ray realizes that that's her grandfather because she didn't realize she was a Palpatine, and so basically transferring his soul, if you want to call it, into her. It's like I said, the dude needed to die a long time ago, like literally in like I'd say the end of 6. needed to go bye-bye, needed to be done, make a new person, whatever. But like I agree with you when he was that powerful enough to transfer his body to multiple different clones of him. Like hopefully he's done. Like right now with 9, like I'm hoping he doesn't ever come back. Like literally he should be done.
It really depends on how they write him, but that's not how his character was. I mean, his character was able to transfer the life force from one body to another, and he could do it indefinitely.
Well, I okay, well then it gets to a point, like when do you keep him going? You know what I'm saying? Like I understand he was in the first basically 9 films. Okay, like he was it. He was the grand master of literally the just the
I
Sith.
mean, he was probably the best villain puppet master.
Oh yeah.
With if any villain had a plan, it was him. Like
Oh no, no, he
he's
was
the
definitely him.
guy. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
he's the guy.
absolutely. But anyways,
All right, so let's talk about the good things about the show, John.
so
I mean, there's a few good things, but the one thing that I will mention here, and I know you didn't get to these episodes yet. Death Troopers.
well, you got to see him in the first few, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You did get to see a few of them in some of the
So
beginning
these
episodes.
ones were once Thrawn was introduced and you saw
Oh,
Thrawn,
okay.
he had basically a whole slew of death troopers, and you could tell that they were death troopers because their helmets were all like cracked and put back together, like. And in episode, in that part 8, the Night Sisters use dark magic to bring them back. So there's a scene where, Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka are basically just taking out these stormtroopers left and right. Like they're just taking them out. Like it's not even a battle.
Hmm.
And the Night Sisters use their dark magic, and it's like one of the coolest scenes because half of the stormtroopers, like their helmets are broken off. So you literally see the green glowing from their eyes,
Hmm.
and you see like they're kind of like grotesque, like corpsey mouths, like they're making zombie noises, and literally they just become death troopers. Like there's a book just titled Death Troopers.
Oh, what Lucas originally wrote?
It's one of the original like canon books that are based it's based on these stormtroopers that were dead. They had the Night Sisters use dark magic to make them back to life, and Thrawn used a whole army of them.
Hmm.
And that was one of his plans, was using these like death troopers as like his own private like military. And it was cool just to see that because I mean, who doesn't like zombie stormtroopers?
I mean,
I
we've talked
mean,
about
come
zombies
on.
before, but
I mean, it was really really cool just to see them, and bringing them into like a live action, like it makes them canon, and that's one of the things that I love about Dave Filoni is like the things that were canon that became not canon. Like he is unapologetically like, no, we're doing it.
no, and that's good because that means like even though well, again, we're not gonna go into too much detail, but like all the things that were considered, let's say, non-canon, all the original books and stuff like that. The fact that he's willing to, bring some of that aspects from the original books and doing that, like that's good because now who knows what is going to be canon that is considered not canon right now, but
Yeah.
he can literally just manipulate it into the story. So that's good. I'm glad that he's realizing that, some of that stuff that was originally written can now finally go in well, the problem is again, for us, it's like, we don't know, but we'll find out once more stories
Yeah,
and
we'll
everything
find out.
else.
A lot of the things we did mention, like the parallels between the animated shows and this show, that they go scene for scene. Um, one of the ones where Sabine's looking at the mural of the Ghost Crew, that was like one of the very first episodes.
The the Ghost Crew.
Yeah, it's like one of the first episodes where Sabine, it's right after she cut her hair and
Oh yeah,
she's
yeah.
like, she's touching Ezra's face.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's scene for scene in Rebels.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I mean,
so part 5, where they go back and she's younger in the Clone Wars, that's scene, like, again, scene for scene. So
I mean, again, I just think the personally, I just think that Rosario Dawson just she nailed it on the head when it came to like portraying Ahsoka. I think there, if you found anyone else, I think it would have made it worse. Personally, like if you had anyone else do it, I don't think it would have
so
been as good.
let's go there for a minute, because like there's some bad things that I have
Well, hold
about
on
her
a minute.
portrayal.
Okay, well, I'm not done yet because I know. I mean, we did talk about Balin's character earlier, but I didn't realize that they were going to have Gerard Butler as it's a name that was thrown out, but like have him maybe recast because unfortunately Ray Stevenson just died recently, which it sucks. But I mean,
It was a name thrown out in a lot of the forums I looked up, and I mean, I could see it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it does, but I mean, it sucks when you have to like, initially just recast them.
It'll
You know what I
never
mean?
be the same, no, but I mean, it's certainly better than some of the other names I saw, like George Clooney.
Oh god, no.
Ugh.
I mean, don't get me started on
Oh,
Flashpoint because oh my god, like when I saw that at the very end, I'm like, no. And then
no.
I actually, Allie and I watched it real quick. Sorry, and she looked at that at the very end. I had to explain a lot of what was going on, and I looked at it and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like that's all I got to say. But anyways, okay, go on. Go. What's the bad? What's so bad about?
So, even though, yes, like Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka, although, yes, very mature version of Ahsoka, like much older, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, I did think like her portrayal was very stoic. Even at times like where there should have been some kind of like emotional reaction or any type of reaction, there just wasn't in certain scenes. And to me, like when you see Ahsoka in Clone Wars and you see her even in Rebels,
Well, she's younger. That's the
and
problem.
I understand that she's younger, but she almost had no personality
I mean, okay,
in the
so
show.
look at Yoda.
But Yoda still had comedy,
I mean, I'm not saying he
even
didn't.
when he was young, and then when he was old, he was still. I think he was funnier when he was older.
I mean, no, no, I agree. But what I'm saying is like you look at characters like that, and I guess in a sense, you also have to look at the. I'm gonna hate saying it, but look at the race of species, right? Because like we don't know a whole lot about her species in general, but like maybe she doesn't really show as emotions as let's say like humans and everything else that were being portrayed. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things that you
Yeah,
have
I
to
don't know.
think
I
about.
mean, I just feel like
I mean, it's not like Spock. Like it's not like he's basically a robot and doesn't show any emotions whatsoever. But it's like I'm just saying, like I'm just throwing a different race of species like that where it's hard to let's say show that emotions that humans would show where she's not human.
and
You
I
know what I
and I
mean?
and I do get that, but if you watched Clone Wars and you watched Rebels, yes, I understand that she's younger, and like being much much older, I would expect that there to be more experience, more maturity. But I don't think her personality would flip a whole 180 where she would automatically start acting like Yoda would act, like complete 100% Jedi. And that's how I felt she was acting.
Well,
For somebody who, during Clone Wars, especially, after that trial, ran away from the Jedi. Even during Rebels, didn't like the Jedi at all. You see her kind of in Ahsoka where obviously has come to terms with it.
Right.
I still would not see her acting like a Jedi. I would still assume that she would be snippy, somewhat reckless, which you could say, well, she was somewhat reckless. She still did all this stuff.
Well,
She wasn't as reckless as she was in Clone Wars.
well, I get that piece. I think the problem is now is like when you look at the character, right? So like for example, which I know is another thing that you wrote on here that is not one of your favorites. The was it the Leku?
The Leku, the
Y-
head, the
the
brain
head,
tails.
yeah, the brain tails things. So I get it that the shorter it is, the younger you are, the older you are, the longer it is. So okay, fine. They made a slight difference, whatever. Because clearly when she's older, like yeah, she has a longer. Basically, it looks like a giant like ponytail in a tail form, I guess if you want to call it like that. But like, yeah, it reaches down her back. But like, so I guess my question is, what did you know that was different about this and then versus the, let's say the animated?
Well, I mean, obviously, like the Leku or the brain tails or the head tails or whatever. Like, I understand from an actor standpoint, if you make them too big, the you won't be able to move like you should be able to,
Right.
especially in those action scenes. But we're talking Disney.
Oh, here we go.
We're
CGI. I know.
we're talking Disney, where you could animate two freaking head tails. All we're talking are two little appendages that go down a little bit further. Very simply, it that doesn't cost a whole lot to do. It's not like animating a whole body or a whole creature,
No, I get that piece, but like,
but you make them as small as they are with practical effects, and they're just as small as they were when she was younger. So the continuity is just different. And is it a big thing? No, it's not a big thing. The bigger thing to me is how she portrayed the character overall. Like there were certain scenes, like right in the beginning, like I think it was either like part one or part two, where there literally was a bomb when Sabine was in that hospital,
yes, that is true.
and Ahsoka literally just stands there and doesn't say a word while Sabine is dismantling the bomb, and Hera's like freaking out because she's like, "We need to get that thing out of here," and she's like, "No, I can do it." And what is Ahsoka still doing? Nothing.
Was Hera in that room or was she? I forgot she was she was
A projection, I
project.
think.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so like it's funny how she's like, "Oh, get that out of here," but she's not physically there. So why? No, I'm not saying that she wouldn't care, but like, why would you matter in that moment? It's more Ahsoka that she'd be like, "Hey, we need to get rid of that."
But
Thing.
that was one of the things that was like, why isn't she? I mean, obviously, I'm not expecting her to be like, "Oh my gosh, we got to get out!" Like,
No, no, yeah,
I wouldn't expect her to freak out like that, but I would at least expect like some kind of a reaction.
I agree. I just know that I think
Do I think it's terrible? No, I don't. I don't think the portrayal was terrible. I just think there could have been a little bit more emotion put forth into the character.
I guess at the end of the day, I mean, when you look at Ahsoka, I mean, I understand that you verse it off of the Clone Wars and Rebels aspect, where she's reckless, she's young, dumb, stupid, whatever. She's trying to be her own individual person, but like now she's older, she's supposed to be more wiser, stoic in this sense. But like,
I just don't. I wouldn't see her personality changing all that much, just to fit the narrative of like all of a sudden she's like a super kind of Jedi really super calm in every situation, that wouldn't be how I would portray her in every situation. Like, I would portray her as being still very rash. You know what I mean? Kind of still
Yeah.
reckless, like maybe a little bit mature about it, where she's not just like, danger, let's go that way. Like
No.
maybe like a
No,
little bit
yeah.
more like reserved about it, but like still making those like rash decisions, still like really kind of emotional about it. But like you watch her in the animated shows, and yeah, being young, she's very uneasy, makes terrible decisions. Um, and I would expect like someone to be on their own, learning on their own. Like it's not like she had another mentor teaching her how to be.
I, again, I know we can agree to disagree here, but it's like, if it's that minor, you know what I mean? Like at this point, it's kind of like
So the
it is
other
what it is.
person, like in a lot of the forums, and I saw these on Reddit mostly. Um, s- a lot of the suggestions were Laura Harrier, and
Who? Okay, hold on. Who is Laura Harrier?
so she was in a lot of different, projects. The most, I think, common one was Spider-Man: Homecoming. Um, Spider-Man saves her. I believe what the picture that I saw looked like she was falling down an elevator shaft,
Oh,
and I think her
yeah.
character name was Liz.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. It's similar to the, unfortunately, like was it the Amazing Spider-Man, but like Gwen Stacy, basically that whole similar scene, but
Yeah.
almost not quite. But yeah. So wait, what did she do? Because now I'm curious about like what is wrong for her portrayal, like portrayal of the character that she did.
No, a lot of people are saying like if she was portraying Ahsoka, like she looks the part,
Oh,
because she has that much young, she has that much younger face, and she, not for anything, if you actually look up Laura Harrier Ahsoka, there are people that actually did side by sides with the animated Ahsoka and her in similar, you know,
fashion. Yeah.
in similar poses, and they look pretty much the same. So yeah, I mean, yes, they can look the part. It's another thing
To act.
to act the part, but that's my biggest gripe. I think just from Rosario's portrayal is I thought she was very stoic, and I don't think Ahsoka as a character is very stoic. So that was my problem.
I
But
mean, again, I just think that looking at Ahsoka personally, like I just see Rosario doing it. I'm not saying that Laura, Harrier couldn't do it, but it's like if I'm looking at the character and I'm looking at how she portrays her and everything else, I just see more Rosario. That's just me. Maybe if I took a look at her Laura, sure, maybe it'd be different, but I just see Rosario really doing this role because they easily were like, "Yep, okay, we're going to choose her." It was like a no-brainer question. So it's not like she couldn't do the part. Okay, maybe she could have changed certain personalities, whatever. I guess, but at the end of the day, I mean, they did it for whatever they did, right? So they did whatever they needed to do. But I just think that I think overall, I think she did a good job. That's just me.
I mean, like it or not, we're stuck anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, that too.
So the last couple things, I guess. I mean, we did talk about the world between worlds. Um, it's in the bad because I think this is really confusing to me, and I think it probably is. If it's confusing to me, it's probably confusing to a lot of people. Being the nerdy geek that I am,
Oh, you mean this is the more nerdier side of you? But go
um,
on.
the world between worlds was introduced in the Clone Wars, and then it was reestablished in Rebels. So one of the things that I saw was a quote from Palpatine, and he says This mystical realm connects all of time and space, creating a conduit between the living and the dead. Those who control this plane would possess mastery over all existence, but gaining access has proved an unexpected challenge.
Hmm.
So, as I said, there's a kind of a play on C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia series of books. This one would be like Wood Between Worlds, which is kind of the same idea. It's basically like a parallel between worlds kind of place where it's just doors,
Right. Instead of a
like the wardrobe.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. The wardrobe was the key, the portal to get into that to
Except this
Narnia.
one was like there was a green ring and a yellow ring. Like you had to wear one to get in and one to get out. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
See that's that nerdy side in you right
Yeah.
there.
So the world between worlds has translucent pathways that react like water when someone walks on them, and at the end of the pathways are portals that can transport travelers across both short and vast physical distances. So, Star Wars World Between Worlds can also move people through time.
Hmm.
So it's really one of those like, where are they going with introducing this? Like, are we going to see, you know, because this is strictly within the Force. Like, you're not going to see like Han Solo walking through the world between worlds.
No, but like you could see, Kenobi. You could see Qui-Gon Jinn, Yoda, Mace
Right.
Windu, whatever. They could all basically be here at the same time.
Right. And so, like, if you saw, Ray go to the world between worlds, she essentially could go all the way back to, you know, the Knights of the Old Republic.
True.
And if there's a change made there, is it going to affect
Well, it's
everything else?
it's the whole butterfly effect.
You know, how would they even go addressing this? And this is where, is there going to be now a Star Wars multiverse? Who knows? You know what I mean?
And this is why we have our name, Geeks from the Multiverse. It's just there's so many possibilities and we just don't know.
Um, so it's really one of those things, and another, the other thing that I kind of have in here is, they, when they're talking about, this in particular with the world between worlds, they introduced these force gods, the Mortis gods, um, as kind of a way to explain the force. And I'm not the only one. If you look it up, there's a lot of other people that are really kind of against kind of this idea of, do we really need a way to explain where the force came from? Like, why can't we just have it be its kind of like
Mysterious.
its nature?
No,
Like,
yeah.
we need to have like, because the force gods is really, there's a father who is not, an immortal god. He's just a dude.
That's great. A dude.
He's just a regular guy, but he balances the son and the daughter, which are immortal gods. The son is the dark side,
And then the girl's the light.
and the daughter is the light. And he balances the force. And the father initially was trying to get Anakin, which you saw in the Clone Wars. He brought Anakin in to essentially replace him to balance the force.
I guess my question is why you're right. I don't understand why they have to feel the need to explain all this, but why is the father just a regular mortal being and the two, let's say siblings or whatever have to be immortal gods? I don't that's the part I don't
Because
understand.
I think the father was more of like, he wasn't obviously a Jedi or a Sith. He was like a force sensitive person, and I think he was basically the balance between the two. So he brought balance between the dark and the light. That's why he wanted Anakin to replace him, so that he could balance the dark and the light, where the son was the one who gave Anakin all of the visions of Padme dying in childbirth
Okay.
and, him becoming, Vader and being more machine than man and all these visions of the future, essentially, you know, in the end, winning because Anakin did turn to the dark side.
But I guess, really, in the end, he really did redeem himself.
In the end, he did. I think in Clone Wars, he actually does kill the son because the father dies.
So I'm surprised, even though he's in, like, basically he's in astral form, like, he couldn't do it now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think what's interesting is where Balin's character is going, and I think that that's kind of where we're kind of talking about because at the end of Part 8, Balin's character is literally at the end of the episode, and he's standing on the statue of the father and the son.
Hmm.
And where the daughter statue is supposed to be, the daughter statue is broken.
Interesting.
And, he's kind of standing on the father's hand, and the father's hand's pointing forward. And he's, Balin's looking at kind of this like mountain area.
Huh.
And that's kind of how that, that part of the episode ended with him. Shin rejoined the Marauders or whatever, those
Those people. Yeah.
people that she was with before. But it'll be interesting where they go with Balin's character because he's obviously on a journey to find these force. I mean, showing him on those statues, he's obviously looking for these force gods.
I guess you're right. I feel like in the sense of that, I think if you want to keep it mysterious and how its physical presence was supposed to be just with the Force in general, like even in the original movies, they never were like, "Oh, did you know about the Force gods of Mortis?" No, they never
No, I
talked
mean
about him.
even Yoda was like, it's in the things, it's in
It's
everything around you.
right.
It's in the air you breathe, the plants around
Right.
you. It's in the can of cherry vanilla Coke I'm drinking.
No, but that's
Like,
what I'm saying. Like it was mysterious and it was just the way it was.
yeah.
Now they're like, no, we got to really make this, interesting. And now we have to now explain this in the new movie with Thrawn and everything else. But it's like, what's the point of doing that? Now you just ruin the whole concept of the Force, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hope that they give it justice because it's like you're explaining all this and where the force potentially comes from, but where is where do the Night Sisters come in and play with this? They're not Jedi, they're not Sith. They use dark magic,
Right. And what does this have to do with anything?
right? So, and that was another cool thing like at the end of the Part 8, like they arrive at Dathomir.
Yep. So this is a game. Well, now I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking of more Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, like in that. Well, really more Fallen Order, but like that was like, you know what I mean, like being able to like visit some of those worlds and stuff like that. So Dathomir
Yeah.
was kind of a interesting place to to be at that time.
So they show up there and then, they kind of go to the, kind of this balcony that oversees the hangar bay.
Right.
And down below is just row after row after row after row of coffins that I'm only guessing came from the planet they were just on. Piera, whatever that planet was.
Yeah.
Which if I had to guess what those were for, is so that the Night Sisters can raise the Death Troopers.
Yeah.
That's what I'm assuming they were for.
Could be. Yeah. That's probably what it would be if I'm taking a guess.
They were kind of arranged in that general way, like
row by row lines and
yeah,
so on and so forth. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But I think as a whole, I mean the show's good, and I think when you look at most of the Star Wars content as far as TV shows, it hasn't been a terrible one. I mean, the Book of Boba Fett wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
I would put probably Ahsoka. Since I mean, Granted, I'll have to make sure I watch the rest of them. Um, I would probably put Ahsoka at easily in the top 3 so far. So far for TV shows, I would easily put them. I would put that in the top 3 because Mando was definitely going to be, off the
Mandalorian's definitely at the top, and I would even put I think Obi-Wan above it.
really.
Above, not above Mandalorian, but above Ahsoka.
So you would go Mando, Kenobi, and then Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I could agree with that. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty accurate, because Mando really kind of when it first came out, it was like, oh my god, this is great. It was great storytelling, everything else, and it
Yeah.
was interesting with Grogu and whatnot. I mean, who knows? I mean, that's where hopefully, moving forward, having different TV shows and different characters they start to bring in, they can still bring that same hype. You know what I mean? And so hopefully with Ahsoka ending the way it did, it's gonna bring more hopefully more people to be like, oh, this is great. Let me watch, some of the other
Yeah,
shows.
and that movie is supposed to be a Mandalorian movie. It's not supposed to be like an Ahsoka movie. It's supposed to be Mandalorian,
What movie?
the Dave Filoni movie about Thrawn. It's supposed to be a Mandalorian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I mean, is Ahsoka probably going to be in it?
Oh,
Probably.
absolutely, yeah.
I would assume Boba Fett will probably be in it too. But
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be probably all the characters from all the different realms so far. I would assume
Yeah.
that they're gonna because that would make zero sense on why you wouldn't want to bring those characters in, personally, or at least right now.
I would even go as far to say that Ezra will probably be teaching Hera's son how to be a Jedi.
Hmm. It's a pretty bold prediction you just made up right there around the spot.
I mean, in one of the episodes, it's when Ahsoka's in the world between worlds. It's clear that he's force sensitive. So I mean,
Well, I mean, it
I
makes
would go
sense.
that far.
Well, I mean, because he was he do well. I was trying to remember. There was a scene in the very first couple episodes, like he was doing. I think it was something he did do something with the Force. I thought at first, like he was manipulating something and he was like juggling, or I don't know what it was, but like I did remember him doing something.
Yeah, I don't
But
remember.
I think you're right. I
But,
think that's probably what it's going to be.
but I mean, where Ezra is right now, I think it would make sense for him to, take a Padawan
Right, teach him.
and teach. I mean, Ahsoka's already got one in Sabine, so
Right, trying. Trying is really what it is. But
so
yeah, I think we're good on this whole review thing, but I will say that we're gonna try to do more reviews on different TV shows because we've realized that there are a lot of people that like to do reviews, and we're like, you know what, we should probably start doing
next
that.
one's gonna be Loki.
And see, I haven't seen because I think it just came out. If
It
I'm not
actually
mistaken,
comes out. Well, for us right now, it'll be on October 6th.
Oh,
Which
is it
is, for us right now, it's tomorrow.
oh, it's right, but it
But
like
when
2
this
weeks from now.
episode, yeah, when this episode comes out, there will be, I think, 2 episodes.
Well, hey,
But by the time we get the episode recorded, the show will be over.
oh yeah, so that's when
So-
we'll do the actual review
Yeah.
of the whole thing. But guys, we appreciate you. We love the support. We love everything that you guys do. Again, follow us. Go to that merch store, man. We're hurting right now when it comes to merch, man.
Yeah.
We really love
Buy our stuff. Buy our stuff.
buy our stuff, man, because we told you guys that if once we can get more people to start doing this, we're gonna try to donate to different organizations, different things like that. I mean, unfortunately, right now we're not doing anything. We can't do anything because we don't have anything to give, and if we had stuff to give, we'd be giving it right now. I mean, we already talked about having a few different organizations and whatnot, but we can't do that without your guys's unfortunately monetary value to help us out. But I mean, it's not really, like I said, it's not what we want to do. We want to be able to, do it so that way you guys can, know that we're trying to help out like different organizations, whether it's local, whether it's national, whatever it may be. Right. But as always,
Stay geeky.